Jamaica is a highly prospective target area for different kinds of deposits in an island arc terrain.
As probably the most widespread, intensive, and in-depth exploration program that's ever been carried out in this island.
5 or 6 years worth of work into just 2.
No one else has ever done this before. There has been historic work on the island, trending back 150 years.
I think they're getting excited, as we are, so stay tuned.
Hello, this is Andrew Thake from Mines and Money. IAMGold is a mid-tier mining company with 3 gold mines on 3 continents, including the Thake mine in Burkina Faso, the Rosabelle mine in Suriname, and the Westwood mine in Canada. IAMGold aims to become a million ounce gold producer as it executes on its growth strategy, including bringing Côte Gourde, its 4th mine, online. I'm joined today by Gord Stothart, President and Chief Executive Officer of IAMGold. Gord, you released your Q4 results recently. What were the key highlights?
I think key highlights for me were mine site free cash flow was very, very strong, certainly in the 4th quarter and for the year, especially considering everything that was going on, generated over $200 million in mine site free cash flow, which was important to us. We had talked previously about the concept of being self-funding while we execute on the growth strategy. So as part of that, we wanted to ensure that the existing assets were contributing to the bottom line on an ongoing basis, and not drawing down on capital. So that achievement really allowed us to sort of end the year with nearly $1 billion on the balance sheet in terms of cash and equivalents, and nearly $1.5 billion in total liquidity when you include in our untapped $500 million line of credit. That was important for us. I think as well on the execution front, the announcement that we had achieved our first major milestone with the Côte Gold project, and we're able to advance detail engineering. We were able to advance the major earthworks milestone, start of major earthworks. Originally, we had said that was going to occur in April, May this year. We were actually able to achieve it in January. So it's nice to see us out of the gate ahead of our schedule, and we'll continue to work at that and see what we can do to bring that project in on time, on budget.
And how did you adapt to the challenge of COVID-19?
Well, COVID, was certainly a huge challenge for us, as it was for everybody in the world. All of our operations were affected in different ways. I think we did a very good job right out of the gate last March in setting up our crisis response teams, set them up at each site. We had a corporate crisis response team to sort of coordinate what our external view was and deal with governments. And then we had an intermediate level committee that's still operating and still functioning well, really looking at coordinating between sites, looking at supply chain, looking at our overall health policies. So that allowed us to address the situation. Obviously, we were impacted most first at the Westwood mine in Canada. The government of Quebec mandated a shutdown for about 5 weeks of mining operations. So that impacted us. We were able to get back operating at the end of April with that. And the site did a great job of implementing new protocols to make things happen. Essakane in Burkina Faso was impacted. We had some crews were at sites for 2.5 months on steady rotation, because the Burkinabe government instituted what they called a regional quarantine on the area and really wouldn't allow us to move people around. So that started to impact productivities and other aspects of the operation. That sort of passed as of June last year, and the operation did well. Rosabelle was impacted really starting in the middle of the year. We were in a suspension for about 5-6 weeks. Overall, Suriname had done very well early on with COVID, but they did get their first wave sort of in the middle of the year last year, and that did impact us. The challenge, I think, for the second half of the year, both at Essakane and Rosabelle, but much more so at Rosabelle, is we made some policy changes with respect to our camps. Historically, we would have had a significant proportion of the workforce would be housed in camp, 4 people to a room. So 2 people on day shift, 2 people on night shift. We made the decision on the back of COVID that we were going to reduce occupancy and have a maximum of 2 people in any room, 1 on day shift, 1 on night. So nobody's sharing the space at the same time. And for Roosevelt, that meant we had to add around 300 rooms to camp, and that process took a while. We're just in the process, started about a month ago, rolling out those new camp buildings and getting occupied. So we were somewhat understaffed for the second half of the year at Roosevelt.
And what's been the biggest lesson learned? Is there anything that you'd have done differently? I guess with the benefit of hindsight.
The benefit of hindsight, you know, I think we would have moved to the protocols sooner. I think we probably would have stronger contacts with the public health authorities in the countries where we operate to one, to back them up and facilitate what they're trying to do, but also to help them understand what we are able to do and what requirements we sort of need for regular operations and how we can adapt to the situation. You know, overall, I'm very proud of how people across all of our sites, exploration sites, operating sites, and corporately were able to adapt. I mean, I'm still, as you can probably guess, working from home. So you know, the IT department really stepped up and facilitated things, but the operations have been very strong. And, you know, we're learning a lot, as I think the whole world is, around how to address a pandemic.
Yeah. In terms of, I guess, the sort of like long terms of impact of like COVID-19 and working from home, how do you think it would change the nature of work within the mining industry and at IAMGold? Will it see to more automated technology? Will it see to more home working in the future?
I think on the corporate side, it probably will lead to more work from home in the future. And I've been talking to other people at other companies and trying to understand what happens to corporate, to commercial real estate and office needs is going to be interesting. So we're watching that closely. You know, we still miss the human contact, and we do need to find a way to accommodate sort of both aspects of it. For the mine sites themselves, yes, I do see additional technology coming at them. It is challenging to implement those drastic technologies in short order. So it will take us some time to make that happen. I think overall, the operations just, I think, exercised the muscle in crisis response and exercised it very well.
Mm-hmm. Moving from COVID-19 to ESG, all miners talk about sustainability credentials, but, you know, if I'm being a little bit cynical here, sometimes it's often all words and no action. What are you doing that's sort of like different at IAMGold?
Well, at IAMGold in 2007, before I even joined as COO, the company had put forward what we call our zero harm vision. And it's been very, very strong. You know, it's interesting because I do hear the term zero harm with other companies. We quite literally have the copyright on that term. I'm happy for other people to use it because I think it's a great concept and I think it benefits the whole industry. For us, it really means finding ways to work to accommodate our people, the communities where we operate, respect the environment, make sure that we're driving ourselves in a direction that we can all be proud of, you know, our actions. In concrete terms, we've done things. We built one of the largest solar diesel hybrid plants in the world at Essakane. So although the plant was started on an isolated thermal unit, we did add solar there. We did add a smaller solar plant earlier on at Roosevelt. So on the environmental side, we are sort of looking at emissions and what we can do with respect to emissions. With Our communities, we've always had very strong programs with our communities, a lot of work trying to find development opportunities that can survive the tenure of the mine. When I look at the concept of sustainable mining, for me, it really means doing something, allocating part of the value that comes from extracting the minerals into the communities and the countries in such a way that you can have a sustainable benefit to that country well beyond the life of the mine. So for instance, the solar plant we built at Essakane will stay around long after that mine is gone and supply power into the communities. We've just finished phase one of a program called Triangle d'eau, or the water triangle, in and around Essakane, where we're looking to supply water initially to around 60 to 70,000 people. As we head into phase two, we want to expand that to around 200,000 people to have potable water supply. Those are the types of things, market gardens, etc. In Canada, what we've looked at is more support of other sorts of charities, home hospice, a number of youth programs in Quebec. We support the local major junior hockey team, which is huge, obviously, in Canada. But we've taken the angle of creating a bridge and supporting a bridge between the education community locally and the hockey team. So providing opportunity for students to go see games, but also providing tutoring for the young players who are playing on the hockey team so that they can continue their education while they're pursuing their sports goals.
Okay. From ESG to gold, how much of your company's financial performance in 2020 and your projected performance for 2021 is due to or dependent upon a high gold price?
Well, certainly a lot of the performance for 2020 was dependent on the high gold price. And, you know, as I look at it, there are sort of two aspects to the coin. Obviously, a lot of the reason behind the high gold price, personally, my interpretation has to do with COVID. So yes, we got the high gold price, but on the downside, our operations were impacted, our production was impacted, our costs were impacted for the year. So it was somewhat muted. As we look at 2021, the sites are operating on a good basis. They've set themselves up well. We are implementing, and we would have done this independently of what else happened, but we are implementing a specific cost-saving program this year at the operating sites, looking to improve our productivities and our overall cost profile. And we do our planning at conservative prices, specifically as we're in the growth cycle, as we're in construction. We want to make sure we manage that balance sheet so that we get through to the end of the growth cycle and we can execute on those projects without creating any sort of financial challenge for ourselves. So on the back of that, we've been using pretty conservative gold prices in our estimates. I'm happy to have the higher gold prices for sure, but we're not going to be reliant on them to be a success. And as we're transforming our company, as we're building Côté and eventually Boto, it will really allow us to move into a different cost bracket overall and move well down the cost curve compared to where we've historically been.
Do you believe in peak gold theory?
Personally, I do. I don't know if the current peak is a historic peak, but I do see a midterm challenge for the industry overall in terms of just the lack of exploration, the lack of new deposits that have been found, and the rate at which we're depleting the existing deposits. It's going to be intriguing. You know, we are a little distinct from our peers. We continued to invest in exploration and actually saw a nice build over the past 5 or 6 years in terms of both reserves and resources at IAMGold, which is a bit different from the trend generally in the industry for sure. And I'm intrigued and wonder as we look out 3 or 4 years here, what some of the other players in the industry are going to be able to do. it's interesting. M&A doesn't put another ounce of gold in the ground. That consolidation may make specific companies bigger, but it isn't adding to the overall picture. The overall picture comes through exploration and or an inflection change in costs that allow you to go after lower grade material that you might not have been able to harvest before.
Moving on to the future of the industry and leadership, is the mining industry doing enough to win more generalists and millennial investors over? What does it need to do differently?
I think certainly with respect to generalists, steady generation of cash, free cash flow, and eventual obvious returns to shareholders is what a lot of generalists are looking for, and that needs to be demonstrated. I think there has to be ongoing education. The cyclical nature of our business can be a challenge for some journalists, so it needs to be out there. I think just some of the spectacular numbers that the mining industry has been able to generate over the past while is a natural attraction to journalists, and the overall printing of money and just where's the overall economy going has been an attraction. Millennials is an interesting challenge. They're not as familiar with gold as an investment vehicle. Look at it maybe as being a bit anachronistic and trying to understand what the value of it is. And I think for us, that is again a bit of an education exercise. I know the World Gold Council is doing some interesting research and marketing with respect to gold. We've got to be better, I think, at specifically targeting the incoming sector of future investors and help them understand why it's so important to have something concrete like gold in a world where governments are trying to race to the bottom by debasing their currencies.
Which role model has inspired you the most in your career?
There have been a lot of people that I've admired a lot, and I've had a great opportunity to move around and see different parts of the world. A couple names that pop into my head. I had an opportunity when I was in Peru to work directly with Derek Panel, who later became the CEO of Noranda. I was with Noranda Falconbridge Xstrata for 21 years before I joined IAMGold, and Derek was an engineer, had worked at operations, had actually worked very close to our Westwood mine in Rouyn-Noranda for 35 years, and was involved in technology development there, and just through his capacity and his skills worked his way up through the organization, eventually becoming CEO of one of the major mining companies in Canada. A real gentleman, a very inclusive, collaborative, team-based leader, and I have a lot of time and really appreciated what I saw from him. I've had the opportunity to work with some others. The very first mine manager I worked for when I came out of university was a gentleman by the name of Maurice Ethier, or Etier, who started as a heavy-duty mechanic and made GM at the mine he was at by the time he was in his early 40s. So obviously an intelligent man, a lot of capacity, and again, teamwork. I really admire that in companies.
Okay. And then just one final question. I always enjoy asking this because I get some great answers. Has a failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours that you'd like to share?
Unfortunately, a bit of a sad story. I was involved in an incident where we had a fatality at the mine in Peru when I was there, and it was an incredibly impactful event for me. And whilst I'd always been very focused on health and safety. It really drove for me the need, again, echoing back to teamwork, it drove the need to get the safety message and the behaviors right down to the front line, absolute front line. And what can we take away from this? What can we learn from this? Our culture at IAMGold is we don't spend a lot of time poking our fingers in people's chests and looking for someone to blame when something goes wrong. Our job is to find what did we learn from it and how do we make sure it doesn't happen again. And is there anything we can learn from that? I mean, is there any different approach that may have helped us, or is there some aspect of it that could be looked at as a bit of a victory and worthy of exploitation?
Well, that was a very, very interesting answer. Thank you very much for that. That was Gord Stothart, President and Chief Executive Officer of IAMGold, with Andrew Thake from Minds and Money. Thank you.
Thank you very much.